Okay, I'm really excited to be speaking for you today. I know this is a really common pain point for people in this community, so I'm excited to be sharing information about it. Okay, today's talk is nutrition for pressure wound prevention and management. So, first, I'll tell you a little bit about myself, and then I'll go into a bit of an intro as to what pressure wounds are and the different stages and their significance for spina bifida. And then I'll talk about the role of nutrition in pressure wound management, specifically the role of protein, calories, fluids, vitamins, and minerals. And then I'll chat a little bit about my services, and then you're welcome to ask questions. I have a bachelor's degree in kinesiology from York University. And then after that degree, I decided I wanted to become a registered dietitian. So I did another bachelor degree in nutrition from Ryerson University in Toronto. And most recently, in June 2020, I graduated from Ryerson again with a master's of health science in nutrition communication, where I then went on to become a registered dietitian. And as Shauna mentioned, I do have extra training. I'm continuously keeping up with the research and doing courses and webinars. So one of the extra trainings I've done is in mindful eating. During my dietetic internship, I did a placement with Special Olympics Ontario, where I got to teach cooking classes and workshops for athletes with intellectual and developmental disabilities. And that's where I started to foster this passion for my niche. And then in December 2020, I opened up my business, my virtual private practice, and my blog, JackieSilverNutrition.com, where I work one-on-one with clients across Ontario, with children or adults, mostly with physical or intellectual disabilities. Okay, so before we get started, I'm just curious, how many of you have experienced a pressure wound? If you want to just type quick yes or no in the chat, that'd be great. Okay, I'm seeing yes, yes, yes. My son has one. Yeah, okay, yeah, it's super common. Okay, great. Yeah, thanks everyone for sharing. So, a little bit of background about pressure wounds in the spina bifida population. And when I say pressure wounds, I'll use interchangeably pressure injury, pressure ulcer, pressure sore. They all mean the same thing. So, according to the National Spina Bifida Patient Registry, 26% of people had a history of pressure wounds, and 19% had a wound in the past year alone. So that is quite significant. And approximately 34% of adults with spina bifida versus 26% of the general population will experience pressure wounds. So it's definitely a lot more prevalent in this population. And the healthcare costs, as I'm sure you're aware, are very expensive, anywhere from $20,000 to $150,000 a year to care for someone with a pressure wound. So it's super important to take care of our skin as best we can with what we do have in our control. And nutrition definitely plays a role in that. And that can honestly help save our healthcare system a lot of money too. Okay. So a pressure wound is when there is a skin and tissue injury as a result of prolonged pressure on the skin. It's most common in the bony areas where there's not as much fat or muscle protecting those areas. So it's either easier to break the skin and damage it. So common in bony areas such as the tailbone, the buttocks, the shoulder blades. In people who use wheelchairs, it's most common in the areas where your chair touches, well, your skin touches and can create some friction against the chair. So that's most likely in the tailbone, the buttocks, the back of the legs where it touches the wheelchair, or the shoulder blades. And risk factors for pressure wounds. So this means factors that put one at increased risk for developing a pressure sore would be wheelchair use, lack of sensory perception, so not being able to feel, let's say if you're sitting in a chair or wheelchair, not being able to feel the discomfort and not getting that sensory signal that you should get up, that you should move a bit and shift a bit. Excess moisture from sweat, urine, or stool that can create more friction against the skin and makes it easier to break down. Diabetes, so that's in folks with diabetes, there's impaired blood flow to the area, which also puts you at risk for a sore. Smoking, because smoking can impair blood flow as well. Poor nutrition, this is a risk factor. People who are undernourished will be at greater risk for developing a sore. And dehydration. So when you're dehydrated, it affects the feel of the texture of the skin, so to speak, and it makes it more prone to breaking down. Okay, there are 4 different stages of pressure wounds. The first one, and these are illustrated in the photos here. The first one is when the skin is a slightly different color, so it could start to turn a little bit red, but there's no open wounds yet. The area might feel a little bit warm, look a bit red, a little bit inflamed. And then stage 2 is when you start to see the skin breaking down. And it starts to open and form a bit of an ulcer. And then stage 3 is when the sore worsens and it starts to create a crater. So it's starting to like create that dip, more of a deeper dip into the skin. And then in stage 4, that's when the most severe stage, when it's quite deep and can go into the muscles, the bones, and the tendons. So it's going quite deep, and you can see in this photo, you can even see the bone at the bottom layer is exposed. And one thing I forgot to mention is that when people have surgery, that's not, and they have a wound, that's not a pressure wound, but it is still a wound. So that you want to heal and to close up. So these strategies today will also be relevant to people who have wounds from surgery. Okay. I like to use this analogy that pressure wound management is like a puzzle, because we need all the pieces of the puzzle to work together in order to have the best care and improvement in our skin health. And just focusing on one is not going to be good. You need all the pieces. So it might be, having a wound care nurse who comes and cleans the wounds and makes sure they don't get infected, or a physiotherapist or occupational therapist helping you learn how to use your wheelchair better to prevent developing wounds. Sometimes involve surgery. It could involve seeing a doctor and getting appropriate medications or whatever it may be. And then wheelchair positioning using special cushions that help prevent wounds, anything like that, maybe a special bed mattress, and then the nutrition aspect too. So we need all of them, and the information in this webinar is meant to be educational. It's not meant to be a personalized prescription. So it's always best to check with your healthcare provider or a registered dietitian to learn what's going to be best for you. So nutrition alone is not going to work. You need all those factors. Okay, now to break down the nutrition for pressure wounds, I like to break it down into 4 categories. There's fluids, there's calories, making sure you're eating enough, protein, that's super important, and vitamins and minerals. So I'm going to go into these in more detail in further slides, but for now, you might be wondering what the role of nutrition is in managing or preventing pressure sores. So nutrition helps to heal the sores at a faster rate. When a wound is healed without proper nutrition, it's going to be weaker and more likely to break down again in the future. Now, more specifically, protein helps to build and maintain muscle. It helps to heal tissue and protect the immune system. I like to call it a builder block, a building block, or a builder because protein helps to rebuild. Extra calories, those help to facilitate wound healing and makes up for tissue breakdown because when we have wound, especially if it's in the higher stages, it's going to be super active and using a lot of energy, a lot of calories, and we need those extra calories to make up for the losses. And then fluids help to transport nutrients to the wound. And then finally, vitamins and minerals, those help with reducing inflammation, supporting tissue repair, and collagen production. So, protein. Now, I'm going to delve into a bit more about the role of protein. Protein helps to repair and grow our body tissues. So, when we have a wound, obviously there's breakdown of skin, breakdown of tissue. We need protein to help to rebuild that. It also plays a role in producing enzymes and hormones that are involved in wound healing. And it helps our immune system by resisting infection and protecting the immune system. So wounds are at higher risk for an infection, and so protein plays a role with that and promotes the growth of skin cells. So the common theme here is that protein are the builders, the building blocks for helping to rebuild our skin. And yeah, rebuild muscle, skin, cartilage. So just a note of caution, if you have kidney disease, people with kidney disease have too much protein can be too hard on the kidneys to break down. So they usually have lower protein requirements. So if this applies to you, just check with the healthcare provider to see what your protein needs are, because this might not be applicable. So to just review some sources of protein, I know this might sound basic, but a lot of people don't actually know what protein is. So we have animal-based protein sources like beef, chicken, fish, seafood, turkey, eggs, dairy products. And I made a note here with cottage cheese, Greek yogurt, Icelandic yogurt, because those are the dairy products that are super high in protein, much greater than cheese or a regular yogurt or milk. So these might be ones that you want to include if you have a wound. Then soy or pea milk, or a protein fortified non-dairy milk. So these are non-dairy options. Soy milk is the most nutritionally equivalent to cow's milk. Things like almond or oat milk or cashew milk, they don't have protein. They have a super low amount of protein. So if you have a wound and you're used to drinking the almond or cashew milk, what have you, I would recommend switching to a higher protein version. And then we have more plant-based sources, vegan sources like tofu, tempeh. Tempeh is fermented soybeans. It's kind of like tofu. It's really good. Then beans, legumes, these are excellent sources of protein and fiber. And nut seeds and nut butters. Excuse me. And then we have protein powder and sometimes nutrition supplements. I didn't mention that here, but that could be an option, and protein bars. Okay, so you might be wondering, how much protein should I have? I don't want you to get too hung up on these numbers, but the general recommendation is that for people with a stage 2 wound, to have 1.2 to 1.5 grams of protein per kilogram of body weight. So you would just calculate, multiply your body weight by 1.2 and then by 1.5, and you'd get a range of how much protein, and that would be like the ideal range to stick to. And then for stage 3 and 4 wounds, those are more severe wounds, so there's a higher requirement of protein. So that'd be 1.5 grams to 2 grams of protein per body weight. So that is quite significant. It could be up to double your body weight in kilograms. So it's quite a lot of protein, but yeah, it's really helpful. But honestly, as long as you're making sure you're getting a lot of protein in all your meals and snacks, you'll probably be okay. But in any case, this is not medical advice, so please consult with a dietitian for something tailored to you. Okay, now you might be wondering, how do I increase my protein intake? I have some practical strategies for you. So, like I said on the previous slide, include protein sources at all meals and snacks. So that could mean, instead of just having an apple for snack or berries, you have berries paired with Greek yogurt, or you can have cheese and crackers, or cheese crackers and an egg, having eggs on toast, having canned tuna or salmon in a tortilla. So you're getting that mix of that protein with a fiber source. You could have a protein bar. You could make a smoothie. Smoothies are a really good way to sneak in extra protein. You could add yogurt, you could add protein powder, or you could add both. And then sprinkling on extra nuts and seeds to your cereal, your oatmeal, your yogurt, your salads. Increasing the protein serving. So if you normally have, I don't know, like a palm full serving of chicken, maybe that means having 1.5 that or double that. Just if you normally have like half a cup of yogurt, maybe that means having a cup or a 3/4 cup. So just slightly increasing to slightly increase that protein intake. Choose a Greek or skyr yogurt or a low-fat cottage cheese. Those are really high in protein, dairy sources that are really high. You can melt cheese into soups, eggs, or casseroles. When some people really have trouble, they can add milk powder or protein powder to their foods. You can add a milk powder to mashed potatoes or to your soups, stews, or whatever you're cooking, as a way to buff up the protein intake. And then drinking cow milk, soy milk, or pea milk instead of cashew, almond, or oat, which are much lower in protein. Okay, so the next part of wound healing is energy intake. When I say energy, I'm referring to food energy, so in the form of calories from the food that we eat. So when there's a wound, there's an increased loss of fluids and nutrients from the wounds. The wounds will emit discharge. There's discharge that comes from wounds. So those are fluids and those are nutrients. So we need to replace those. Okay, and just a note that reducing your caloric intake in an attempt to lose weight when you have a wound, especially a higher stage wound, that can impair the wound healing. So it's not the time to be thinking about weight loss when you have a wound. Getting that wound healed is much more important. So you might be wondering, how much do I need? How much energy or calories do I need? Again, don't get too hung up on the numbers, but the general recommendation are 30 to 40 calories per kilogram of body weight per day. And stage 3 and 4 require more than that. So some tips for increasing energy intake. This is also helpful for people who have a low appetite or maybe on medications that suppress appetite, and they're not really so hungry, but they know they need to get in those extra calories. So you can add an extra snack. You can spread out your food intake evenly throughout the day. So make sure you're having 3 meals and then 2 to 3 snacks, or make sure you're eating something every 2 to 3 hours. You can add an extra serving of protein or whole grains to your meal. So if you're having rice, maybe just slightly increasing the portion of the rice or the pasta, or the casserole or the soup, potato, whatever you're having. Limit liquids at mealtimes. When you're drinking liquids at mealtimes, it can make you feel full. And so you might end up eating less than you would if you weren't drinking the liquids. So save the liquids for in between meals or right after a meal. Smoothies are a great way to buff up the energy and the protein. You can add extra peanut butter or nut butter. You can add avocado. You can add that milk powder I was talking about. anything that has higher calories. You can do a whole fat milk. Add avocados and nuts to your sandwiches or salads. So spread the avocado on the bread. Yeah, sprinkle the nuts on the salads. You can dip your fruit in nut butter. So apples and peanut butter are a really good combo. For people who are really struggling with appetite but have wounds that they need to heal, nutrition supplements like Boost or Ensure, these protein drinks, so to speak, these are have higher calories and they have that extra protein as well. You can add cheese to salads, soups, or pasta. Dip hummus in crackers and vegetables, or spread hummus on bread when you're making a sandwich. Okay, so now I'm going to talk about fluids. The role of fluids in wound healing is that fluids keep the wound site hydrated. They help to transport nutrients from the rest of the body to the wound site to help promote healing, and they carry waste away from the wound cells. And fluids also help maintain the skin integrity. So as I mentioned earlier, when you're dehydrated, your skin loses some of that strength and integrity. It makes it more likely to break down in the future. So fluids will help to maintain that integrity. When you have an open wound, there's lots of discharge and stuff being excreted. So, and especially fluids. So you are losing more fluids than you normally would. So we've got to replace those losses. A bit of a caution, if you're on a fluid restricted diet, people with heart disease or heart failure or lung conditions, even kidney conditions, they might be on a fluid restricted diet. So this might not be applicable. So just check with your healthcare provider to see what your fluid needs are. Now, how much fluid should you be having in a day? The recommendation is about 2 to 3 liters. So that's 8 to 12 cups of fluids a day. Now, what do I mean by fluids? It's not just water. It can include seltzer, milk or non-dairy milks. Those are fluids too. Tea and coffee also, not too much, about not more than 2 to 3 cups of caffeinated beverages a day, but they can count as your fluid intake. Also, there's fluid in the foods you eat and in soups, for example, and smoothies. Those also have fluids. And juice too. Some strategies for increasing your fluid intake. I know a lot of people struggle with this. If you're not a water person, don't really like the taste of water, you can add frozen or fresh fruit to the water. You can do lemon or lime slices, fresh mint, cinnamon sticks, cucumber, watermelon, cucumber, lemon, herbs to your water to enhance the taste. And I do this all the time. I love it. It makes it taste like a nice juice. It makes it refreshing. It's really good. Spread the intake evenly throughout the day. So don't just chug down 2 liters of water at night, have it spread slowly and consistently throughout the day. Keep a reusable bottle with you throughout the day, whether you're sitting at a desk or you're going out and about, bring it out with you. Just keep it there where you can see it so you have that reminder to take sips throughout the day and refill it when you run out. Take sips of water. It says here while eating meals and snacks. I would say in between. With snacks you could, and after meals if you're struggling with eating enough at the meals, that is. Make soups more often because the liquid in those soups can count towards your fluid intake. Try pairing it with another habit that you already have. So for example, drinking a glass of water as soon as you get home from work, or with your afternoon snack, pairing it with that, or after you brush your teeth, or after a workout, or maybe with your morning coffee. You have coffee, you have a glass of water. So pairing it with something that you already do. Okay, now vitamins and minerals. I know, people might think, oh, if I have a wound, I should take some supplements. I should take some vitamins to help with the healing. The research is quite conflicting and unclear. with this respect. So that meaning that supplements might not actually make a difference in the wound healing if you know that you have a nutrient deficiency. So if you know that you're deficient in iron, or you've got a blood test and you're deficient in some other vitamins, then you should take a supplement to get those levels back up. Otherwise, if you're not deficient, um, you likely don't need a vitamin to help with the wound healing, because the research is really pretty inconsistent there. But we do know that low levels of vitamin C, A, E, zinc, selenium, magnesium, and iron impair wound healing. So, if you know you have a deficiency, you'll take a supplement. Otherwise, eating lots of fruits and vegetables is going to be the way to go to make sure you're getting all those vitamins. So, for example, foods that contain vitamin A are milk, mango, sweet potato, pumpkin, carrots, cheese, eggs, leafy greens. Vitamin C is found in kiwi, broccoli, cantaloupe, citrus fruits like grapefruit, oranges, strawberries, bell peppers, or orange juice as well. And zinc you can find in meat, liver, oysters. Oysters are super high in zinc, eggs, milk, or whole wheat products. Okay, that brings us to the end of my presentation. I'll just give a little bit of an overview on my services in my business. I have a one-on-one virtual private practice where I work with kids, teens, and adults. Some common conditions that I see are autism, ADHD, spinal cord injury, CP, MS, brain injury, um, any type of medical condition where there's disability involved. That's my main forte. I can support with constipation, bowel issues from neurogenic bowel, pressure sores, bone health, meal planning, mindful eating, chronic disease management. So if you have high cholesterol, diabetes, high blood sugar, blood pressure, any of those, um, feel free to check out my website, jackiesilvernutrition.com. I have a free meal prep planner that you're welcome to download. It's on the homepage of the website. It's a really great resource to get you started. And I offer free 15-minute discovery calls for people who are potentially interested so we can chat a bit more about your needs and how I can best support you. And yeah,
Great.
there's my website, Instagram, and email. You're welcome to send me an email if you have any questions, and check out my website. I update my blog 2 to 3 times a month with recipes and educational resources.
Thank you very much, Jackie. That was great. Very informative as always. I'm just checking the chat to see if we have any questions. There, I don't see any, but one crept up for me. When you're calculating the amount of protein, for those of us that aren't mathematically inclined and don't know what 1 gram or 2 grams, how can we define that by like looking at something, I guess you would say?
Like the amount of protein in foods?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a good question. Honestly, I would just say if you're having like a really nice serving of protein at every single meal and snack, then you're probably going to be hitting that target. So, and I would say check the serving size at the back of containers. So, for example, like the Greek yogurt, it will say one serving is about 3/4 cup, and the amount of protein, it will say about 18 grams. You know that's like, if that's one serving, that's a really nice amount of protein. Just to give a bit of context, I probably should have included a slide on this. 3/4 cup of a regular yogurt will probably have about 7 grams of protein. So the 18 is
Okay.
a lot more. But just making sure that you are hitting that, or if you see, like, check the cottage cheese and check what a serving is of that. If you want to really be sure, maybe just increase that serving size a little bit to get a bit more protein, a little bit more protein. But just like spreading it out throughout the day is going to make sure that you're building up the sources and you're getting enough. So don't get hung up on the numbers.
That's good. But like having a visual kind of thing, that to me gives me more perspective of
Mhm.
what I'm looking for in like what is 1 gram, what is 2 grams, and that I'm getting enough. So there's one
Yeah.
question here. Does protein create flatulence?
Um, okay, before also I just want to say this might be helpful then if you like to know the grams, aim to get 15 to 30 grams of protein in your meals and snacks. That
Okay.
should be like a target, 15 to 30. Yeah, but don't get too hung up.
Yes.
Okay, so now is it okay? The flatulence. Honestly, it depends on the person. It depends on the type of protein. For example, if someone has IBS, they're going to be more sensitive to foods. But if someone's lactose intolerant, then yeah, if they have dairy, they're going to get flatulence and bloating. So, you have to know yourself best. Maybe that means switching to a lactose free version or a non dairy version. I will say non dairy yogurts don't really have protein in them. So that's something to be cautious of. Um, some protein powders people will get a bit bloated from. Some of the vegan ones I've heard. Some people tolerate whey protein powders better. It's really going to be about trial and error and finding out what works best for your body.
Right. As with everything that we eat.
Hmm.
Uh, we have a question. Someone is looking for a copy of the presentation. Will we be able to provide that to them?
Hmm.
Perfect. Okay. One other question that I had that came up when you were going through the healing process. I often find, you know, with having spina bifida and having a lack of sensation that, I'll bang my leg or, some other part on something and then, notice a bruise, but it takes the bruising a long time to heal. Would you apply the same type of strategy for bruising?
No,
No?
no, I don't think that applies because it's not an open
Open
wound.
wound.
I mean, that could be more like a blood issue, like a thin blood or
Or
um,
just circulation?
yeah,
Okay, I just
yeah,
thought I'd ask that one.
good question.
There is one. How much protein powder per day would you recommend?
Um, 1 to 2 servings of it. Like there isn't really a limit.
Okay,
Say one
Jason,
to
does
two.
that answer your question or
And you don't have to have protein powder if you can get enough protein from the food you eat. You don't need protein powder. It's just a good option, especially if people are vegan or vegetarian and they have trouble hitting their protein targets.
okay, Emily is asking if there is an alternative to pea milk.
Yeah, there's soy milk. I know in the States, the brand Silk has a protein fortified, I think it's an almond or cashew milk, but they've added pea protein to up the protein. There's also a new brand that I recently saw called Not Milk, and it's vegan, non-dairy, and it's supposed to taste like milk, and I think that uses pea protein also to increase the protein.
And these alternatives, are they easily found in your local grocery store, or do you have to go to a specialty food store to find, say, pea milk?
Pea milk is actually now I've seen it in most grocery stores. Soy milk for sure. The popular brand of pea milk is called Ripple, and I've seen it at most grocery stores now. But I would say things like the not milk or the special, fortified ones, those might be more easily found at a health food store.
Okay, and we have another question about protein intake for children.
Mhm.
Is it the same recommendation for proteins? 30
Mm.
to 40 calories per kilogram?
It depends on the child's age. Um, like for example, babies have much higher, I mean, it ends up being a smaller amount because they're so small, but their protein need per kilogram is actually much higher than for adults. There are separate recommendations for kids depending on their age.
Okay,
So
and
yeah,
would you be able to provide that information for
yes.
any parents? Okay, perfect. So I'm not seeing any more questions in the Q&A or the chat, but certainly if something comes up, please email either the Quebec Association or us at Hydrocephalus Canada, and we can get those questions to Jackie. Oh, we got one more. The 2-hour turnaround in bed to prevent worsening of the wound. Is that true?
Mm, I mean, that's not my role as a
Not yet.
dietitian. I have
Right.
heard that, but I would say like ask your doctor or nurse. Mhm.
Okay. So ask your doctor on that one.
Yeah,
And okay, I don't see any more questions. We
none
just
from
want
the
to do a
Quebec side.
reminder that there's an evaluation form in the chat, and we would love you to fill that out because your feedback helps us provide more webinars similar to the one today. Thank you very much for joining us today. Thank you very much, Jackie. It was very informative, and we look forward to hearing from you again soon in the future. Have a great
Likewise.
day, everyone.